This is an impact of the outside relationships really is something that impacts the family. It really is something that impacts relationships. I heard a joke one time, and I heard an old gentleman he said, there's only one thing worse than finding out that your father had another family on the other side of town. And that's finding out that you're the other family on the other side of town. Welcome to the Dr. G.O. White Show, a show where we explore the role of Black fathers and their impact on the building of strong families and strong communities. My name is Dr. Gary O. White, and I want to welcome you to a very unique show. This one here is a little different here because, this one here may ruffle a few feathers, if you will. But the question I want to pose is this. What do you think the number one cause or the number one threat to Black marriage, to Black family, and let's just say to Black relationships? Just think about it for a second. Think about it. Hold it. Think about it. Well, I argue that the number one cause to the destruction of Black relationships is this. To be with my side piece. That's it. You heard it right. Exactly what you hear in the background. Side piece syndrome. Let me say that again. Side piece syndrome. This is a concept that I developed along with a really good friend of mine who's a clinical psychologist. We're really close, and we were just kind of trying to explore how do we really take a look at how do we really try to understand what impacts relationships and family. And we arrived at the concept of side piece syndrome. And so when I talked with my colleague and I asked him, now put it in a clinical term, make this concept sound really, really technical. And this is what he arrived at. He said, it is a group of symptoms which consistently occur together or a condition characterized by a set of associated symptoms. Now, you probably saying, wait, what? Say that again? Well, let me put it this way. The mistress or manstress, all right, the mistress or the manstress is a person whom carries on a physical relationship without having the intimate, or forming a committed relationship, all of which associated with being with someone outside of your marriage or outside of that relationship. One who knowingly, hear me, one who knowingly remains in an uncommitted relationship, right? Which emphasizes physical and emotional connection minus the commitment. Now, again, we are talking about the concept of a side piece syndrome, but I'm telling you that this is real. This is an impact of the outside relationships really is something that impacts the family. It really is something that impacts relationships. I heard a joke one time, and I heard an old gentleman he said, there's only one thing worse than finding out that your father had another family on the other side of town. And that's finding out that you're the other family on the other side of town. Yeah, so the side piece syndrome sometimes results in creating entire relationships. Entire relationships. And so when we really all set of the jokes aside, when we really start taking a look at the impact of the deterioration of relationships and marriages, here's what we come to find, that 3% of married men who have had what we refer to as an external affair, divorce, and actually wed the mistress in his or her relationship. You heard it right, only 3%. So why is that important? Because it's when you hear about people who cheat and start and build new relationships, the statistics and research shows that relationship, once formed with that person outside, it deteriorates as well. So what we're saying is how you enter the relationship oftentimes will predict how you leave the relationship. Let me say that again. How you enter the relationship dictates how you leave the relationship. There's another statistic says that among unmarried side pieces, 60% of the males admit to wooing the people, right? Wooing the person, or 60% of the men admit to finding or talking to that person, trying to fulfill something that they believe they were not getting at home. Right? So here's a challenge within that, right? So 15% of the men who are financially dependent on the other spouse will cheat, right? So they're finding something outside of the home. But you know, you've heard me say before that men bring peace to the house and the women will turn the house into a home. But sometimes the peace is distracted. That peace has come from somewhere else. You've stepped outside of the relationship. Now, you have to understand this thing, right, before we continue with the stats. A side piece, that person who's in art of that, who's mastered that, they know what you're missing, right? Now, how does the side piece enter the relationship? So you all work with me on this. Y'all work with me on this. How does the side piece gain prominence? Well, it starts by, this is that friend you're talking to, and you're sharing with her everything. And don't forget that a woman can have a side piece too. So what I'm telling you right now, I'm saying that one of the things about the side piece is that they are excellent listeners. Let me say that again. They are excellent listeners. And so what do I mean by that? They're hearing what you're saying you're missing. They may sound very empathetic with what you're going through. Oh my God, I can't believe it. And then somewhere along that discussion, the side piece who may start out as a friend, who may start out as someone who really cares for you, but every once in a while, the first step that side piece does is they'll say this, you know, if that was me going through that, there's no way in the world I would treat you like that. And then all of a sudden, that good ear begins to hear. Right? And so now the person who's suffering from the side piece syndrome realizes that now they've come across someone who tends to listen better than your spouse has ever listened, understand better than your spouse has ever understood. And all of a sudden you start developing this unnatural connection. You believe that now you found your soulmate, but in truth, you just found someone to mate with. The side piece syndrome will do things, will say things, and be present unlike your spouse. What's the difference? We start abandoning the emotional investment and the emotional maintenance that's required to build a relationship. You know, some of us are very successful out in the world, but the tools that you use outside of the world are not designed to work in the home. You may be a successful attorney, a defense attorney. You can't bring those issues into the home. They're not designed to work. You may even be a therapist, a psychologist, a doctor. It doesn't matter. Those tools you use in the outside world are not designed to work inside the home. And guess what? The side piece knows that. Let me say that again. The side piece knows that. And so the challenge that we have here is that because that side piece is an excellent listener, then your tolerance, right? Here's a sign for those of you who suspect that your mate may be suffering from side piece syndrome. One of the indicating signs that I want you to pay attention to is that their tolerance begins to go down for everything. Let me say that again. Suddenly out of nowhere, their tolerance just starts to diminish. And so what I mean that something that may have been simple, like you left the dishes in the sink, and now all of a sudden, I'm tired of these dishes being left in the sink. Also, the tolerance goes down, increased irritability sometimes, right? So now all of a sudden, everything becomes irritating or irritable. So I need you to, so for those of you who may be wondering and questioning, I need you to pay attention to this concept of side piece syndrome. I need you to explore within yourself. What I'm saying to you is that I need you to be careful of the people who you share your issues with, because not everybody in your circle, especially someone who you may not realize at that time has an attraction to you, or you may not even realize at the time that you have an attraction to them. You have to be careful on who you share your family or relationship issues with. And the truth of the matter is that really it's only about one or two people who are in your life that will genuinely listen to and hear your concerns. So, but the side piece will always be available to listen. And so I want to challenge you all in this piece here. If we're really talking about building families, if we're really talking about building strong relationships, I'm going to challenge you to be mindful of that, because here's what we know. The end result is predictable. The end result is predictable. You will find yourself, if you're controlling or completely impacted by the side piece syndrome, you'll be willing to give up everything. You'll give up the house, you give up the car. Some will even leave their family. But the challenge is with the side piece, they don't want you to do all of that. The side piece wants you to stay in that relationship and build a sub-relationship with you. So this is how we know many times we see that side piece relationship ends up ending, because now the dynamics of the relationship has changed. And so I want to invite all of you, and I want to challenge all of you to explore. Go to the doctor, go to the therapist, get a checkup, talk to somebody who got your best interests at heart. Get the diagnosis of side piece syndrome to see if you're suffering from it. See if you're dealing with some symptoms related to it. You'll thank me in the long run. And so I'm just saying to you is that as you close and as you move and as you try to navigate that final aspect of that, or as you're paying attention to that person who is in your life that is hypersensitive to everything you're doing, I'm just going to tell you to pause for a moment and check and see if you really are sharing your relationship issues and concerns with a silent or hidden side piece. I'm Dr. Gary O. White, and hopefully there's something that I said, something that has triggered you, something that has moved you to a state of unrest or discomfort. I'm telling you this because the foundation of the Black family is the relationship. And like everything that we see in society, when it's going well, it'll be attacked. So focus and be mindful of the side piece syndrome. When you do, even you will thank me for that diagnosis. I'm Dr. Gary O. White, and I'm going to say to myself, I'll toast to that.